Hi, it's Sahara, and I want to take a few minutes to take a look at the Florida Parkland shooting yesterday on Valentine's Day. Um, I did a couple of charts like this a ways back. The most notable was um, Richard Beck, who had he was a mass murderer back in the 60s, and that was just unheard of, you know. And his chart fit this pattern that I began to see. I'll show you. I know this is a chart of an event. However, I'm going to show you where, if this were even a chart of an individual, you would hopefully be able to guide them to the right, like Richard Speck was a frustrated artist. He had great talent, as was Adolf Hitler. But to focus on this event chart, look for this in other charts you do in individual charts. Cancer rising. When you it this theory I began to understand is mentioned a lot in older astrology books, and I just didn't realize how important it was. The 0 point of all charts is Aries, and that's where all charts start, and that's the rising. It sets the tone of the layout of a chart and the events. This is a square. Hold on one second. This is a square to the Aries point. Cancer is squared Aries and belongs down here on the 4th house cusp. So everything gets off kilter from there. And I'll show you that we look at the that it's off kilter because of that. But to emphasize the misalignment of things, Jupiter is in Scorpio. That's nice. I like Jupiter in Scorpio. I hate to say it, but this means posthumous fame. Scorpio rules death. But it's in the 5th house. This is a Leo house. You have Scorpio, a fixed sign, in a fixed sign house. This would be normally square to it. Moving up, we have the same thing happening here. Mars is in a square house because Sagittarius would be squared Virgo. It's a Virgo house. Same thing with Saturn and Pluto. They are in the house of Libra, and that is a squared. Normally, in a classic chart, the Capricorn would be up here. This continues. We have 3 planets in Aquarius. This is a squared sign. And it wouldn't be so bad if maybe, say, these planets were in the 11th house, but this is evenly distributed for off-centered and juxtaposed planets. This is probably the telling tale. 9th house, of course, rules education. And we have the juxtaposed, or the squared sign, Pisces, in another mutable house that would normally be squared that. And so this means that the educational factors are kind of off kilter. Now here's the thing that I did in some charts like Marilyn Monroe and Martin Luther King and Al Gore and Queen Elizabeth. The numerology of charts was I shocked to understand, begin to see 13 and 4. 13 is 4. If you take 1 plus 3, that's 4. These two degrees are very tough, and I went into that a lot with Al Gore, Marilyn Monroe, Queen Elizabeth, Martin Luther King. I found a lot of people that it kind of showed the misfortune in those individuals' lives. And the best thing I ever heard Martin Luther King say about his dream is, if you don't have anything to die for, you've got no reason to live. He was an amazing person. But he had 13 degrees, I believe Taurus was rising. So what we have here is 4 and 13 together in the 9th house. They don't bode well for education, and it's misfortunate because they're juxtaposed in a juxtaposed house. The this is a Capricorn house. You have an Aries planet here. I do believe every single planet is in a misaligned configuration from the natural chart. I was surprised to see this pattern lining up for individuals. If this was an individual, if he came to me, let's say this is a birth chart, because you have to imagine there were little babies born with exact charts like this. Hopefully, they can be guided. This is a chart. The Cancer cares about their country and their home, and they're very protective. However, this was on hyperdrive because he was a white supremacist, so he felt like he was defending his homeland. Who knows? That seemed to be part of his problem. But when you have this kind of misalignment, this is Cancer. They have the Cancer and Libra, they have the hardest time getting married and staying married. Of course, if Cancer appears somewhere else, it's, they behave like wonderful Cancers. The same with Libras. If they're in that misalignment, the marriage and children and everything that denotes Libra and Cancer are off kilter. With this type of chart with Aquarius here, study psychology, study occult, period. Don't get married, don't have children. This person was way far away from that, as for all kinds of reasons. And this is an event chart. But you're going to run into configurations like this when you're doing charts. You look for 13 and 4. Trust me, I've got a 13 in my chart. That started to get my attention. And I continued, oh, never mind, that's my chart. But it was a relief to find out what the problem was. I had a problem with certain aspects in my life, and the rest of my life was great, but I kept hitting this wall. It wasn't until I saw Queen Elizabeth's chart, and her Venus was at Pisces, 13 degrees. Venus rules young women, so that's been her biggest problem. Mainly her daughter-in-laws, and her younger sister and her daughter. Just one problem after another. Nobody wants to settle down and behave like a princess. And they're going to act up and cause her terrible strain it's hard enough being a queen. So, and that was my problem. My Venus was at 13 degrees, and I kept saying, what is with the younger women in my life? Good God Almighty. And that's my thing. I was just glad to see it, to understand, and to get an insight from it, and turn my focus to other things. Um, so, like doing this. So, I'll wrap this up. I just want to point this alignment out, that when you have a square or especially opposed sign, which of course would be Capricorn, Libra, or Cancer rising, and then you start to have every single planet is in, except this hasn't quite gone into the 7th house, but every single planet is in the a sign that would normally be squaring it. So Pisces belongs in a square down here. So I give this to you to think about. And it looks like